Hello and welcome back into Live from the Plains. My name is Daniel Locke. This is Logan Fowler. Happy Halloween as it is October 31st as we are recording this. Sorry we missed you Sunday. We took the weekend off. I went to see Taylor Swift. Logan just wanted to relax, and I completely get that. But that would happen the week that Auburn wins. So, Logan, how are you doing? And kill some time as there's a train that's about to pass my window.
All right. Yeah, I'm doing pretty good. Not gonna do any Halloween celebrating tonight, but doing pretty well. Got us another game in Jordan-Hare Stadium this weekend, so that's good. I was very tired of those to start the season because there were 5 in a row, and now that they're back, I'm thankful for that. I'll go ahead and start talking a little bit of Kentucky. While your train passes by. So Auburn picks up the 24 to 10, right? 10 win up there in Lexington. Almost couldn't have asked for a worse start to the football game for Auburn. They give up 10 points on the first 2 drives. Kentucky goes down and gets a field goal and a touchdown on the ensuing drive. It looks as if they're about to have their way with Auburn. Dane Key made some miraculous catches on those first 2 drives, and it was just like, oh man, like this is the Kentucky team that we saw play against Ole Miss and Georgia, and that was one of the questions we asked before we, as we were previewing this game, was, hey, which Kentucky is going to show up, and it was looking like the Kentucky of September, early October was about to show up. So they scored 10 points on the first 2 drives. That was they've only scored, and I could be wrong. I might need to go fact check myself on this one. 20 points is the most points they've scored in an SEC game this year, and they got half of that in the first 2 drives. So I mean, it was just if you're an Auburn fan, you were thinking, oh crap, like here we go again. Same old story. But after those first 2 drives defensively, DJ Durkin they dialed in. Keldrick Falk had a day. Jay Crawford looked amazing out there. His quarterback spot got his first interception, so that was nice to see. And then so another special teams penalty to start off the game on a kick return, and Hugh Freeze pretty much said this week during his presser, he was like, hey, if that happens again, I'm gonna like rip my hair out. I've had a discussion with Tanner talking about Coach Burns, the special teams coach. Wouldn't expect to see a whole lot more kickoff returns, especially to open up the game moving forward. But so yeah,
you gotta wonder what the point is.
Right.
And so, yeah, kind of to jump in here, like you were saying, first of all, I wasn't able to watch this game live, obviously, because I was a little preoccupied. But I was keeping up with it periodically. If you're not familiar, Taylor takes about a 2 to 3 minute break, or it's probably not that long, but a little gap between each era. So each one of those, I would check the score. And at first, it was like, oh wow, down 10-0 in the first quarter. Same old. But Auburn clawed their way back into it, and I also noticed Jay Crawford when I was rewatching the game on Sunday, and I was really impressed with his level of play.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's been really impressive as a true freshman out there, especially in a thin young room in that secondary. And now that Antonio Kite has been dismissed from the team this week, yesterday, Wednesday, that's obviously Kite wasn't making a huge impact on that room, but it's already a thin room, and you just lost another guy. So
yeah.
But to get back to the offense, yeah, they come out, they start inside their own 10-yard line there. They go 3 straight plays. Jarquez Hunter doesn't get a touch. He had 6 carries in the first half.
Yep.
I'm not mistaken, only 1 in the first quarter.
Yeah, and then he becomes the biggest story of the game, having the most rushing yards an Auburn running backs ever had in a half of football in the second, and I think the fourth most ever in a game at 278, which is insane, averaging 12.1 a carry, 2 touchdowns, and a long carry of 50 yards, just really hitting his stride here. And I feel like this is just reinforcing what Freeze definitely has already known, and that they need to get 27 football.
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously, good things happen when he touches the ball, whether it's out of the, a handoff out of the backfield, getting it to him in the passing game. He just needs to touch the ball.
Sure.
He had 9 carries on the first drive of the third quarter.
Yeah.
So more carries in the third quarter than he did the whole first half, and you see what happens. Now, obviously, Jarquez is not going to go out there and run rampant every week. That's he's not going to run for 300 yards every week.
Right.
Wouldn't expect him to run for, you know, 200, 250 this week. I mean, that's just not really likely. But you obviously see what you need to do. And another thing that happens when you get Jarquez Hunter the ball, and you saw it in the Kentucky game, is it helps the entire offense, and
Yeah.
it helps Peyton Thorne. Peyton Thorne started the football game off 5 for 10 with an interception. He looked rough those first couple of drives. They finally find an identity on the offense. They find what they're good at, and suddenly he's completing 5 of his next 16 passes. Ended the game 20 for 26, and I mean he threw for 172 yards. Yeah, it doesn't jump off the page at you, but once they figured out that Jarquez Hunter could carry the load, it was you saw the entire offense benefit from that.
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah. So we probably don't need to spend too much longer on Kentucky. Once again, sorry we missed the Sunday show, but as this game's happened, I guess 5 days ago at this point, probably don't need to spend too long on it. So I think I'm about ready to jump into this pick 'em if you are.
let's do it.
All right. So Logan lost a little bit of ground. He had cut my lead to 1 game, but he predicted LSU to beat Kentucky. No, sorry. Auburn played Kentucky. He predicted LSU to beat Texas A&M, which I stuck with the home Aggies. And as a result of that, I've got my 2-game lead back.
That's weird because I picked A&M in my ESPN group.
Well, this is the one that matters. No, I'm just kidding. So let's go ahead and get into the week 10. Wow. Season's flown by. Week 10 SEC Pick'em, and we're going to start out 11 a.m. Central Time on ESPN. Number 19 Ole Miss Rebels travel up to Fayetteville, Arkansas to take on the Arkansas Razorbacks. This one's tough. Other than the Auburn Vanderbilt game, in my opinion, this is the hardest game to predict this week. But I like what I've seen out of Ole Miss, and I really haven't been that impressed with Arkansas since they played Auburn. So I'm going to go with Ole Miss.
Yeah, I'm going to pick Ole Miss too, but I really do kind of want to pick Arkansas. I don't know why, because like you said, I mean they're not a super impressive group, but Ole Miss just hasn't looked very good this year in big games. So I'm gonna go with Ole Miss, but I'm not super duper confident. That's a tough one.
So jumping ahead to the 1:30 game, we'll circle back to the Auburn game at the end. 1:30 p.m. Central Time on ESPN. Maine travels to Norman to take on the Oklahoma Sooners. This one is on ESPN Plus and SEC Network Plus. I'm going with OU. Don't really need to spend too much time on this one, I don't think.
Yeah, Oklahoma.
2:30 p.m. Central Time on ABC and ESPN Plus. I think ahead of the season, this game was supposed to be a lot more highly anticipated than it ended up being, but Florida's just been so up and down this season that no one really knows what to expect, but I don't think it's beating the number 2 Georgia Bulldogs at that neutral site game in Jacksonville. So I'm going to go with Georgia to extend their winning streak in the Deep South's largest outdoor cocktail party or whatever they call it.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Georgia too. I'm not super. I mean, I'm kind of impressed with Florida this season, given the predictions that they were given prior to the year.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think they've already exceeded expectations. Obviously, they got to finish off strong, which is pretty tough because the back half of that schedule is just, whew, it's tough.
Yeah.
Um, so, yeah, I mean, while I've been impressed with them, they're not going to take Georgia down. So, I'm going Georgia.
3:15 p.m. Central Time on SEC Network. The Mississippi State Bulldogs host the UMass Minutemen, the team I grew up cheering for, or one of them. I would love to pick UMass. I would love to be able to confidently say that UMass is going to travel down to Starkville and upset Mississippi State, but I am trying to win this contest, so I'm not going to be able to do that. So I'm going with the Bulldogs.
Yeah, I'm gonna pick Mississippi State too. Even though they've looked pretty bad this year, picked it up the last couple of weeks. Other than last week, they did get beat pretty bad by Arkansas. I think that this is probably their best shot at a win of the rest of the year. Who did they lose to in like week 3? Who or week 2? Who was that?
Mississippi State,
Yeah,
Toledo.
Toledo. That's right.
And they didn't just lose, they got their sorry. Almost. They got their butts kicked.
Yeah. I don't expect that to happen this week, so I'm going to go Mississippi State.
So moving ahead to the first night game of the slate, 6:30 p.m. Central Time on ABC and ESPN Plus. The South Carolina Gamecocks host the red hot number 10 Texas A&M Aggies, a team that's got 2 top 10 wins on their resume this year, LSU and Missouri, I think.
Yeah. You know what? I'm already losing this contest right now by 2 games. So and I know I told you before the show that I was going with A&M. But you know what? Give me the Gamecocks.
Okay, wow.
If I win, then I make up a game. If I lose, then I'm still in the same if they lose, I'm still in the same position that I'm in. So
Fair enough.
Considering that we don't have any money on this and there's no consequence for losing, then I'm going to pick the Gamecocks here.
That's fair. And the final game of the week, chronologically, obviously we still got one more to talk about. 6:45 p.m. Central Time on SEC Network. The number 7 Tennessee Volunteers host the Kentucky Wildcats. This is pretty easily Tennessee, in my opinion. Night game, Neyland Stadium. I believe, Tennessee still riding high off the win over Bama 2 weeks ago, and I assume they won if they played this past week. I can't remember.
I don't remember either.
This week was probably the least amount of college football I watched all year.
I watched a pretty good bit. Pretty sure they had a bye last week.
Okay, we'll just go with that. If we're wrong, let us know. It happens. We're not perfect people. We're close, but I'm just kidding. I'm going with Tennessee.
There you go.
Are you going with Tennessee?
Oh, my bad. I thought I already said it. Yes, I'm going with Tennessee.
You're good.
I'm sorry. I'm in here looking. They were off last week. Okay.
And with that, that will bring us to, the second game of the week chronologically, but the rest of the show we'll be talking about a big game inside Jordan-Hare Stadium this weekend, one that I really feel like could be important in the grand scheme of things. If Auburn loses to Vanderbilt this weekend and falls to 3-6 on the season, meaning that it would have to win out to have bowl eligibility. I think that this is one that we could really be looking at a year from now if the results on the field still aren't better, and we could be looking at this one as like a failed turning point because last week you go on the road and get an upset SEC win for your first of the year, and seemingly supposed to generate some momentum here. Um, Vanderbilt's coming off a loss, disappointing loss at home to Texas. So this could be another golden opportunity for Auburn to pick up a win here, and then they'll host Louisiana Monroe in 2 weeks because they have their second bye week next week. But you win this game and you win the ULM game, all of a sudden you're 5-5, and you've got two chances to clinch bowl eligibility. Granted, both of those would be against at least probably top 15 opponents. One at home and one on the road. But if Auburn goes into that game having won Kentucky, Vandy, ULM 3 games in a row, I like their odds at home. I like their odds more than going into it off a loss.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, that could be that Texas A&M game could be interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you kind of nailed it. You said, if they lose this game, you could be looking back at it a year from now, and it could be a failed turning point. 2 weeks ago, I would have told you you're crazy if you picked Auburn to win this football game. Now, I'm going to pick Auburn myself to win this football game. So, I think that yes, it was Kentucky. So I mean, wasn't like they went in to Death Valley and upset LSU in a night game. So
Right.
it was Kentucky. The atmosphere wasn't great. Kentucky's not a wonderful football team at the moment. But it was a much needed win for the morale in the locker room. I mean, I don't know if y'all saw the video that the Auburn football social media put out of them celebrating the win afterwards. I mean, that wasn't fake. That really did mean a lot to those players and to those coaches, and it was much needed. And
Yeah.
I think they'll carry that into this game this weekend against Vanderbilt.
Yeah, and you would hope that it was really just a kind of get the monkey off your back kind of deal. And that now you're ready to kind of rail off a bunch of wins in a row, like I was talking about. Um, and now you're at the point where I wouldn't say things get easier because I really don't believe that there's ever such a thing as an easy game in the SEC. I mean, when you had Vanderbilt like 5 years ago, sure. But at least this year, Clark Lee, I almost forgot his name. Clark Lee's squad's not one to, you know, just look past.
No.
And then a side note here, if you had told me that one team coming like before season, if you had told me that one team between Auburn and Vanderbilt was going to be 5-3 and the other was going to be 3-5, that wouldn't have been shocking to me. It wouldn't have been if you had told me which team had which record. That would have been pretty surprising.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's just how the cards have played out, and hopefully for Auburn, like I said, they just have to get that monkey off the back with the Kentucky win, and then now they're ready to show a team that's substantially higher than them in the SEC rankings. That no, we're still this team. We're still as talented as we were supposed to be, and take one step closer to becoming bowl eligible. But I think we would both agree if Auburn drops this game, while it wouldn't completely eliminate their odds of going to a bowl, the chances would be probably like less than 10%. If that.
Yeah, I mean, this is a big one if you want to make a bowl game. Still don't like Auburn's chances at doing that.
No.
But
I would say if I had to guess, like, what I like, if I had to generate a percentage chance of it happening at this point before the Vanderbilt game, I would put my confidence at about 25%.
it's kind of high there.
You think so?
Yeah, I mean, 2 more losses in these next 4 games. I see.
Essentially, you're banking on for that to happen, you're banking on them winning this game and upsetting Texas A&M
Yeah,
because they're not going into Alabama and winning. Um, if they do, come back, feel free to clip this. Do whatever you want. But no.
yeah. So I mean, getting into this game, what's the what are your key or well, that's the word, keys to victory. What does Auburn have to do to win this game on Saturday?
Well, you can start by looking at what went wrong against New Mexico State a year ago. Because not to beat this dead horse, and I'm sure everybody knows this unless you've been A, living under a rock, and B, live from the plains, and Logan and I are the only sources you have for Auburn information, which I just highly doubt that's the case. If it is, awesome. Logan and I appreciate you, but I'm not full enough of myself to believe that that is true. So, in case you have been living under a rock, Diego Pavia, Vanderbilt's quarterback, was the quarterback who led New Mexico State to that dominating upset. It's almost like those are kind of an oxymoron in a way, because whenever you see an upset, it's hardly ever in dominant fashion. But they beat the brakes off of Auburn that day.
Mhm. And
Uh,
then the year before that, Jerry Kill and Pavia still at New Mexico State play Liberty with Hugh Freeze at the helm there and beat the tar
yeah.
out of them. So
So this is definitely a personal one for Freeze. Freeze, well, I imagine since your name's on the front door, everyone's an important one for Freeze, or should be. But this one definitely means more. You've got to, if you're Freeze, you've got to just want to beat this guy so bad.
yeah, he kind of said in a joking manner the other day at the press conference, I'm sick of this guy. I'm sick of this quarterback. And I'm sure he is. I mean, that guy, Diego Pavia, Jerry Kill, really Diego Pavia, but I mean, they've just presented nightmares for you for these past few years. So here's the thing, though. I mean, not to take away from New Mexico State a year ago, but Diego Pavia, for one, he's a baller. All right, we've seen that, and now he's got. I mean, I'm not going to say that all 11 players on Vanderbilt's offense are going to the NFL or anything, but he's around some playmakers now.
Yeah.
I mean, this Vanderbilt team is better in large part because of him, but they're still better all around than that New Mexico State team was. So, um, and I mean, obviously you've seen it. They upset number one Alabama. They take Texas down to the wire last week. Um, I mean, they're winning SEC games that they weren't winning in the past few seasons. So, while basically what I'm getting at here is that this Vanderbilt team, Diego Pavia's got some guys around him too. So it's not like it's just. I mean, obviously Vanderbilt's not a pushover. Uh,
No.
so, but kind of getting into what Auburn needs to do. One of the biggest things for me, obviously, you're going to talk about offensively. Feed Jarquez, don't turn the ball over, all those things. There's two really big, you know, glaring issues or things that Auburn needs to do to win this game, and that's one, they've got to control the football offensively. They've got to somehow try to win the time of possession category, or whatever you want to call it, in this football game. you know, Vanderbilt, their offense, so what they're gonna do is they're gonna dink and dunk you all the way down the field. They're gonna hold the ball for the majority of the game, keep your defense on the field, get those guys tired, um, and points are gonna come here and there. You know, field goal here, touchdown here, field goal here, and um, they're gonna try to keep the ball away from your offense. And then on the flip side of that, Auburn can't just go 3 and out and punt the ball back over to Diego Pavia and that offense. I mean, that's a solid offense. Um, and so leading, that kind of leads into, and I talked about this at the beginning of the show with the Kentucky game. You've got to get a hot start if you're Auburn.
Mm-hmm.
Auburn against its, I feel like I've probably said this every single show, but against its Power Four opponents this year on its first drives, or I'll just say SEC opponents, Arkansas missed field goal. Okay, this is. Let me rephrase. Auburn's offense against opening drives versus SEC opponents this year was Arkansas interception, Oklahoma 3 and out, Georgia was a 6 and out, Missouri was a 3 and out, and Kentucky was a 3 and out. On the flip side of things, defensively for Auburn against SEC opponents this year, Arkansas missed a field goal on their first drive against Auburn, scored a touchdown on their second. Oklahoma scored a touchdown on the first drive. Georgia, touchdown. Missouri, field goal, and Kentucky, field goal, and they followed that up with a touchdown. So basically, what I'm saying here is, what you've done since SEC play started, can't do that this weekend. You've got to find a way to get points on the board your first offensive drive, and you've got to find a way to keep your opponent from scoring and starting the game off hot. You don't even necessarily have to score points on the first drive, but for the love, you can't go 3 and out. Again, you can't back yourself up with a stupid penalty, throw the ball 3 straight times, get 3 straight incompletions, fall short of the chains, and then punt the ball. I mean, that's just, you can't do that.
Yeah, and to jump in here, another thing, this has gotten progressively better, and I think that, Peyton Thorne, for the most part, has gotten this out of his system. I know he threw an interception against Kentucky, but he didn't have one against Missouri, and he didn't have one against Georgia. So that was 2 games in a row. But I would really prefer to not have to write about another game inside Jordan-Hare Stadium in which Peyton Thorne threw 2, 3 interceptions, or throws one that directly loses the game. It would be nice to not have to do that, just because I've already had to do that before and I'm kind of sick of doing it. So 0 turnovers is another thing. And I really believe that, well, I'm just going to go back, kind of circle back a little bit. This Vanderbilt team is kind of scary. You can't even really say that beating Alabama was kind of a one-off, because they lost to Texas by 1 score. And I know that they have that really ugly loss to Georgia State. And I don't know what happened that day. But this, if Auburn turns the ball over 2, 3 times, I think that this could be a not close loss against Vanderbilt at home.
Yeah, I mean, that's just, you can't have any wasted possessions in this game. You've got to make the most of your offensive opportunities.
And I feel like if you're Auburn, if you lose this game, even by a close margin, it's going to feel like a 20-point loss. Just because this is really a chance to turn things around. And if they piss it away in any way, like, that's going to be kind of a 1 step forward, 2 steps back kind of deal.
Auburn leads the series, the all-time series against Vanderbilt, 20 22-21, and one with a tie in
Hmm,
there. And none of those Vanderbilt wins have ever come inside Jordan-Hare Stadium.
that doesn't surprise me. Well, I think I've about said everything I've got to say. If you don't have anything else to add, I guess let's go and get into some predictions.
Yeah, I mean, I think I kind of already gave it away earlier. I'm going to pick Auburn just because I do think they're kind of riding high from that Kentucky win. And I'm not saying that Auburn is overlooking this squad, I just think that little wave of momentum that they're riding right now, coming back home. I said last week that I wasn't going to pick Auburn again until they could prove that they can win a game. They won a game last week, and so yeah, I mean, I think that's ultimately the reason why I'm picking them. I still think that Auburn is the more talented team, just like I said last week against Kentucky. Their 11 guys for the most part are gonna be better than Vanderbilt's 11 guys on the field at any given time. So I mean, with that, I mean, Durkin's got to dial up a nice plan for to keep that offense in check, keep Pavia in check, and then obviously those stupid penalties, like you said, turnovers, and those sorts of things, and feed
Yeah.
27, man.
Yep. Um, I just kind of retweet all that. My name is Daniel Locke. You can find my written work at Auburn Tigers on SI.com. You can follow me on Twitter at Daniel J. Locke. You can follow me on Instagram at the Daniel Locke if you want to go see some highlights from the Taylor Swift concert that I went to last week, as well as all the other exciting stuff I get up to in my life.
Yeah, you can give me a follow on X or Twitter at Logan F Fowler, and you can find my written work with 1819 News and the Auburn Plainsman.
Cool. And between now and the next time, this has been Live from the Plains. Happy Halloween again, and we will speak with you again soon.